What's up, guys? Welcome to another Forbidden Knowledge stream. We're no longer calling them secret streams. Wow, for you guys. First of all, I want to remind everyone that we're doing the next voice chat. Let me see if I can hold this and tomorrow night at 7:30. So the last one was amazing. Really proud, I guess, to have brought together people of that caliber in this community. That was one of my main objectives when I started this channel. So really appreciate all you guys. A little bit rough in the IllumiGnati camp at the moment. We haven't had water in like 3 or 4 days, and they just told us we probably won't have water for another like 2 days, so pretty stinky. Kind of over it with the water. But overall, I'm feeling really good and focused and positive. I feel like, wait, why does it say no data? Did it drop the stream? Man. It's really getting old. Let me refresh. And okay, there it says. Excellent connection. So, anyways, yeah, I'm feeling really excited about the event, which is looking like September. I hope all you guys can make it, at least for some part of it. And in the interim, I'm going to continue to refine my superfood diet, so that by the time you guys get here, we're really going to have it nailed down. So far, it's pretty amazing. I mean, the effect that it's having on me is pretty remarkable. And so, speaking of forbidden knowledge, this Night of the Brazen Serpent, anyone that missed the last one, I would highly recommend that you go back and check it out. I was actually not aware of how the constellations got their names, and it really sheds a lot of light on, the disruption of the continuity of our souls with the universe and its processes, that we have sort of lost that understanding and connection. It's just like this abstract thing. Right, but there's nothing abstract about it. Something I'm going to investigate as well. My suspicion is that these constellations and their position relative to the zodiac are going to connect in ways that sort of illustrate the idea of different archetypes of consciousness emanating in different directions around that dial. So keep you guys posted, because I'm going to have to do some analysis to figure out if that is true or not. But I definitely suspect that it is. So let's figure out where we... Yeah, I mean, and a side note, I noticed that the dog star Sirius... that barks, giving warning of danger because the floods are coming. Sirius blinks red, white, and blue, and David Icke suggested that that was the reason for the stars and the red, white, and blue flag in the United States, which very well could be true. And it's interesting that police lights blink in those colors. Could be a connection, maybe not. So let's see. Where did we fall off of this? We were talking about how the ancients were afraid that if the sun was not appeased, that if it did not, receive some sort of tribute, that it might not return, because from their point of view, it just went off into the distance and vanished. and it was nothing but a matter of luck that it returned. So they personified the sun and worshipped him under the name of Osiris in Egypt, and transmuted the legend of his descent among the winter signs into a fable of his death, his descent into the infernal regions, and his resurrection. The moon became Isis, the wife of Osiris, and winter, as well as the desert or the ocean into which the sun descended, became Typhon, the spirit or principle of evil, warring against and destroying Osiris. From the journey of the sun to the 12 signs came the legend of the 12 labors of Hercules and the incarnations of Vishnu and Buddha. Hence came the legend of the murder of Kurum, representative of the sun by the 3 fellow crafts, symbols of the 3 winter signs, Capricornus, Aquarius, and Pisces, who assailed him at the 3 gates of heaven and slew him at the winter solstice. Hence the search for him by the 9 fellow crafts, the other 9 signs, his finding, burial, and resurrection. There's something interesting in the fact that the Hiram Abiff and also this earlier version, Kurum, that they were slayed by other Masons. And I think, again, this is something I'm going to have to flesh out, but there's something in that, whether it's a warning or some sort of archetypal message. I'm not 100% sure, but it's definitely significant, and I'm actually almost embarrassed that it never occurred to me to really give that some contemplation in the past. It also sort of reflects the Illuminati story, where Weishaupt had planned to infiltrate the Illuminati and the Masons, and he was eventually arrested and incarcerated. It seems like a replaying of this archetypal story, and it's always the liberator. It's always the one who is seeking to illuminate the masses, whether it's Jesus or Hiram Abiff or Kurum, the older one, is a symbol of the sun, right? Illuminating the masses, betrayed by people within the craft. And the fact that it's a smaller number of fellow craft, 3 that kill him or persecute, and 9 that are on his side. So it's as if they're saying that the adversaries within the craft are actually the smaller faction. So, I'm sure that that's what's being communicated there. The interesting thing about it is that this archetypal story plays out throughout history. It's not like it's just myth. If you look at Martin Luther King or John F. Kennedy, or, I'm not trying to make a martyr of myself, but even my plight with YouTube and being deprioritized and, almost hidden by the algorithm, it's as if all of these stories are like archetypal programs that just play out over the course of human history over and over and over again. It almost supports the simulation theory, although it's not quite necessary to invoke that, because, everything has as its underlying basis mathematical patterns, and patterns, by definition, are repetition, right? So either way, it's basically fundamental to the structure of the universe that we have a handful of archetypal stories, and they all just sort of run their course. This is one of the reasons the tarot is such a powerful tool. It's basically a map of a bunch of these different archetypal stories with definitions and descriptions. And so the celestial Taurus opening the new year was the creative bull of the Hindus and Japanese, breaking with his horn the egg out of which the world is born. Hence, the bull Apis was worshipped by the Egyptians and reproduced as a golden calf by Aaron in the desert. Hence, the cow was sacred to the Hindus. Hence, from the sacred and beneficent signs of Taurus and Leo, the human-headed winged lions and bulls in the palaces of Kuyunjik and Nimrod, like which were the cherubim set by Solomon in his temple, and hence the 12 brazen or bronze oxen on which the laver of brass was supported. This is interesting too, because we have this idea of the Orphic egg, or the black egg, or the blue egg from which the universe emerged. And this idea of a bull's horn breaking it, he's implying that that's a ubiquitous idea throughout all these different cultures. But why is that? Is that because there was a physical or verbal transmission of this idea? Or is it because there's some archetypal metaphor or allegory that represents some actual reality that has leaked through the collective mind and subconscious throughout history into all of these different cultures? And then, of course, the other part of that question is there even a difference? The celestial vulture or eagle, rising and setting with the scorpion, was substituted in its place, in many cases on account of the malign influences of the latter. And thus the 4 great periods of the year were marked by the bull, the lion, the man, Aquarius, and the eagle, which were upon the respective standards of Ephraim, Judah, Reuben, and Dan, and still appear on the shield of American Royal Arch Masonry. Afterward, the ram or lamb became an object of adoration, when, in his turn, he opened the equinox to deliver the world from the wintry reign of darkness and evil. Around the central and simple idea of the annual death and resurrection of the sun, a multitude of circumstantial details soon clustered. Some were derived from other astronomical phenomena, while many were merely poetical ornaments and inventions. Besides the sun and moon, those ancients also saw a beautiful star, shining with a soft silvery light, always following the sun at no great distance when he set, or preceding him when he rose. Another of a red and angry color, and still another more kingly and brilliant than all, early attracted their attention by their free movements among the fixed hosts of heaven, and the latter by his unusual brilliancy and the regularity with which he rose and set. These were Venus, Mars, and Jupiter. Mercury and Saturn could scarcely have been noticed in the world's infancy, or until astronomy began to assume the proportions of a science. In the projection of the celestial sphere by the astronomical priests, the zodiac and constellations, arranged in a circle, presented their halves in diametrical opposition, and the hemisphere of winter was said to be adverse, opposed, contrary to that of summer. Over the angels of the latter ruled a king, Osiris or Orzmud, enlightened, intelligent, creative, and beneficent. Over the fallen angels are evil genii of the former, the demons or devs of the subterranean empire of darkness and sorrow, and its stars ruled also a chief. In Egypt, the scorpion first ruled, the sign next the balance, and long the chief of the winter signs. And then the polar bear or ass called Typhon, that is, deluge, or on account of the rains which inundated the earth while that constellation domineered. In Persia, at a later day, it was the serpent, which personified as Ahriman was the evil principle of the religion of Zoroaster. The sun does not arrive at the same moment in each year at the equinoctial point on the equator. The explanation of his anticipating that point belongs to the science of astronomy, and to that we refer you for it. The consequence is what is termed the precession of the equinoxes, by means of which the sun is constantly changing his place in the zodiac at each vernal equinox, so that now the signs retaining the names which they had 300 years before Christ, they and the constellations do not correspond, the sun being now in the constellation Pisces, when he is in the sign Aries. The annual amount of precession is 50 seconds and a little over 50 degrees. The period of a complete revolution of the equinoxes is 25,856 years. The precession amounts to 30 degrees, or a sign, in 2,155.6 years. So that as the sun now enters Pisces at the vernal equinox, he entered Aries at that period, 300 years BC, and Taurus, 2455 BC. And the division of the ecliptic, now called Taurus, lies in the constellation Aries, while the sign Gemini is in the constellation Taurus. 4,610 years before Christ, the sun entered Gemini at the vernal equinox. At the two periods, 2,455 and 300 years before Christ, and now the entrances of the sun at the equinoxes and solstices into the signs were and are, and so on. I mean, you guys can find lists of this stuff online. From confounding signs with causes came the worship of the sun and stars. If, says Job, I beheld the sun when it shined, or the moon progressive in its brightness, and my heart hath been secretly enticed, or my mouth hath kissed my hand, this were an iniquity to be punished by the judge, for I should have denied the God that is above. So this actually harkens back to something that we uncovered in one of Aleister Crowley's writings a while back on this channel, where he said that in astrology, we're not actually attributing causes to the positions of the planets. We're not attributing actual influence to the spheres. What it really is an interpretation of is a sort of map of the energetic or mathematical state of the universe, the relationships, the relative positions of all of these celestial bodies sort of indicate states that are similar to seasons or aeons, and it's not about the external. It is a map of the internal that happens to exist externally. And so that's basically what he is elucidating here. Perhaps we are not on the whole much wiser than those simple men of the old time, for what we do know of effect and cause, except that one thing regularly or habitually follows another. So because the heliacal rising of Sirius preceded the rising of the Nile, it was deemed to cause it. And other stars were in like manner held to cause extreme heat, bitter cold, and watery storm. A religious reverence for the zodiacal bull of Taurus appears from a very early period to have been pretty general. Perhaps it was universal even throughout Asia, from that chain or region of Caucasus to which it gave name, and which it is still known under the appellation of Mount Taurus, to the southern extremities of the Indian Peninsula, extending itself also into Europe and through the eastern parts of Africa. This evidently originated during those remote ages of the world when the couleur of the vernal equinox passed across the stars in the head of the sign Taurus, a period when, as the most ancient monuments of all the Oriental nations attest, the light of arts and letters first shone forth. So that's another kind of example of the chicken or the egg question here. So we, assuming the legitimacy of astrology for giving us insight into the state of the energy and the actually, I think the geometrical placement or expression of the underlying mathematical patterns, that probably would be the most technical way to explain or understand the map, and why it works. Uh-oh, are we freezing? Why the hell would that be? Maybe having some internet issues. I don't know why that would be true. Yeah, it looks like I am having some internet issues. So rather than take a chance, God damn it, hold on a second. All right, so I tried to clear up some bandwidth. Oh, still laggy. Yeah, pretty badly laggy. So let me just make this final point, and we'll tack on an extra 10 minutes to the next one. Basically, what I'm saying is that what we're talking about here is a macro level of astrology. So, what exactly did he say about this? Yeah, so there was a certain period when Sirius was in a certain position where the arts and sciences took a huge leap forward all over the earth. So even though it was not Sirius that caused that, we may be able to anticipate a similar such period when this repeats, right? And I think if we take the evidence left by the ancients, like the Mayans, cultures that existed long enough and were paying attention to map these things out, believed that these larger cycles did repeat, with the same sort of consequences or the same sort of manifestations within those periods. And I'm pretty sure that this is correct. And the really important and really profound aspect of this is that we can evaluate and understand and use these tools in either direction on the microscopic nature of this paradigm, right? So if we see the larger patterns, we can scale those down if we understand the mathematical sequences and the what's it called? Like, how the Fibonacci has like the segments, if we can get the mean of those relative segments, then we can make all sorts of predictions in regards to our microcosm and also to these greater periods. And so what we are hoping is that this great revolution prepared for by the ages that Albert Pike mentions in the first chapter of this book, what is really required in order for the human. Okay, are we good again? So you guys see what I'm getting at here? That we have to unearth all of the ancient records, like those of the Mayans, most of which were unfortunately destroyed by the conquistadors, in order to avail ourselves as a species of all of this kind of knowledge. And, the integration of this kind of higher understanding, the reintegration is a tremendous tool in so many different ways. In fact, you have to wonder if it really has been lost, because the British Empire, for example, used magicians to guide the decisions of the empire up until very recently. And I think the evidence pretty overwhelmingly suggests that they still do. So maybe we will discover that there actually has been a much greater degree of preservation, and that this knowledge has actually been retained, but selfishly and secretly, by the same smaller faction of brethren that slew Hiram Abiff and his predecessors in all of these archetypal myths. So on that note, Thank you guys so much for your support, and I will talk to you guys in person tomorrow night. I'm really excited about that. It's going to be, I'm sure, another amazing conversation, and I think our attendance will be higher. So see you guys again soon.